So let's talk about the good and the bad with the winners packs. So make sure you guys smash the crap out of this so you guys don't miss out more on it. So this is an actual interesting topic of conversation that's been actually kind of coming up right now. And it's been, the impact on the winners packs on the overall competitive scene, and also, the losers wanting the loser packs per se. So first of all, what I have noticed competitively right now is locals attendance, from what I have kind of seen, has felt like it's been up right now. And I think a lot of this has got to do with the fact that, you can suddenly win a forbidden crown and put a little smile on your face, and suddenly, it's more worth it to go down to the local tournament experience. It's also kind of, for a better or worse lack of things, locals are now a little bit more competitive. Obviously you're going to have the sweaty players still trying their best, but these, at least from the little niche communities I've been seeing, it feels like, things are a little bit more competitive. These locals that are only getting 8 to 10 people have actually seen a little bit more of a bump up recently. Now, it's actually really funny to talk about because right now, I've seen a lot of other players be upset with the format. So, we're posting AWCQ right now. I think the next most interesting thing that's going to happen is going to be the World's Yu-Gi-Oh! Day. And, all of that happening in like a month from now. You're going to see a completely different sort of set of interesting things happening with that. But that's neither here nor there. So, honestly, I think this is the time that the competitive players, which are usually the hardcore players that go out to the LGS, go out for the tournament experiences, they're the ones that we need an incentive to go to locals. These people are back in the grind set right now. They're back at the LGSs and they're back doing their thing. Meanwhile, the casual player who doesn't really have a reason to go to the LGS right now, because, they don't like the format. Maybe, things aren't super exciting. I feel like that number is still significantly lower than it could be. Now, contrary to what you might think here, we do have a couple of things that are going to draw the average Joe back into the game. We're going to have the Legendary Arc V decks. There's going to be a couple people, and you might not be excited about this, but you're about to see a whole new wave of Lunalight players entering into your local competitive scene. Whether or not you're happy, excited, pissed, shitting on the floor, it might mean that, there might be a couple of weeks of increased time in the meta where it might be time to bring some, kaijus into the local scene. That's metagame trends as a whole. If you do want my honest prediction, though, if you've got, a decent sized locals, don't be surprised if suddenly, there's 3 to 4 Lunalight players showing up and you're just like, I just love this deck so much. That's something to kind of think about here. This was a topic of, winners packs and losers packs. So right now, as I have said, locals attendance, from what I'm seeing, feels a little bit up right now. The winners packs are drawing in people. One other thing about the winners packs too, gauging value on these winners cards. This has been the most interesting topic. Obviously, using eBay, TCG Player for some reason I don't think has them up yet. There's an entire subsection of you want to sell. Obviously, the sooner you get them and the sooner you move them, the more worthwhile they're going to be. Actually, I think I had a friend that just won a miscellaneous Ceresaurus. He sold it for like $20. He's like, I don't really care. He's like, dealing with the time to try to sell this to the one other person in the world that wants this at this price. Like, I'd rather just take the $20. It pays for my locals entry, and I can go again next week. I don't really blame them. And also right now, the locals tournament experience is, you're not only just playing for the winners pack, there's the ultimate OTS, or the OTS Ultimate Tournament Pack 1 right now, where, you can pull Ash Blossoms, Fallen and Virtuous, Dark Magician of Chaos. You might not be excited about the Dark Magician of Chaos, but there's also Thunder King Ryos, which are coming out of these packs at I think right now they're $13 a copy. So, in theory, if you go to a locals and you high roll, you get an Ash, which is $100. And then on top of it, you also get the winner's card, which could be a crown or something worth $50, $60, $70, maybe $80. That's it's good. This is like the first time that Yu-Gi-Oh! Locals pricing has been worth it. Now, there's been a couple of oddball stories. What happens when a Locals has to close early? What if there's 2 undefeateds? What happens to the winners pack? Welp, that's up to the Locals to figure out according to tournament policy. You guys might not know this, but, stores do reserve the right to close early and end their tournaments based on, hours of operation. It's not something that comes up all that often, but I have read more and more reports from people being like, oh, our OTS is ruining us. They ended the tournament early. No, they close. All right. Like, I'm sorry, your Locals is starting at 6. 18 people came out and you thought you were going to finish, 4 rounds of Swiss in 2 hours. It doesn't take a genius to understand how math works at 50 minutes around. All right, like I'm sorry to tell you that. That's what happens on some of these late night week Locals, and you might not like that. I've also heard people being upset there's not a winners pack. That's for losers. Okay, first of all, I understand that, some of us are worthless and some of us are terrible at this game. Some of us expect to be rewarded for being massively terrible at this game. So people want like, I went X4 pack or something. Yu-Gi-Oh! Right now is not a game of participation, gets your thing. If you want your participation, your OTS pack is your participation, all right? That's what you got for showing up, as long as your Locals actually follows OTS Konami policy. But that's a story for another day. As long as your Konami store actually, does what they need to do, well, good news, everybody. You're going to get rewarded for it. Yay! Such a crazy concept to think about here. But with that being said, people, all right, let's look at it like this. Okay, so there's no losers pack. Boo-hoo, all right? You got your OTS pack, you pulled your $60 card, you got lucky, or you pulled like a $2 card. I'm sorry. Well, welcome to the tournament. What can we do about it? But right now, the value in playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Locally is worth it. I cannot believe Konami took steps to fix the game. And it's crazy right now. Now, I guess the other question has been, what happens to these? Some Locals only got like 4 winners packs. I think the reason why Konami sent these winners packs in such small numbers to stores is they don't want a lot of these winners packs circulating around. What happens if the tournament store just, breaks up the tournament packs and just goes and sells them willy-nilly? What do you expect? It's going to happen to some places. I mean, it's bad, but it happens. So the stores that are only getting these 4 to 5 tournament packs, I assume more will come as the next months roll out. It's just going to be a game of, patience. And also, if this gets Konami tournament attendance up across the board, if Locals are actually getting revitalized because of this, between the new tournament pack and between the winners packs actually being worthwhile to go potentially play for, Yu-Gi-Oh! 2026 is actually saved, which is crazy because, we're over halfway there are 4 months left in this year. Well, basically 4 months left in this year, and Konami has done it. So, guys, tell me, give me your opinions here. Do you think Yu-Gi-Oh! Is doing better right now on more of the competitive scene? You're giving players a reason to want to play this game. And that's an important thing. You might not, believe it or not, but contrary to popular belief, getting people into playing, I do think is an important factor. But also, Yu-Gi-Oh! Players have to have some sort of monetary return. You might not like saying that, games shouldn't be investments. Well, if I'm spending money, I'm going to want my money back potentially, or at least some part of it. Like, knowing that my shiny cardboard is worth like 3 cents, it is actually kind of nice to have that feeling. So, it is what it is at this stage. But, Yu-Gi-Oh! Finally doing better. I'm so happy for this game, man. Also, stop complaining there's not a losers pack. Please. It's the dumbest shit I've ever actually heard. Guys, put a smile on your face. You guys have a good rest of your weekend. See your beautiful faces back here today, guys. Patrons, thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. Check out these other videos.